He said it should be in just a couple of minutes. Yeah. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make just a couple of remarks to let you know what is happening today. And then I'll give you a minute to go and get coffee if you want to go to and, nap. And that's okay? And this program should take 1 minute, and then I'll let you go. Oh, I just want to welcome everyone to the Wyndham Senior Center. My name's Jeannie Bertrand. I work as Outreach and Marketing. And Jim Reynolds is up there in the office. He's our director there. And we're just glad that you came and come back with something else. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dave. All right, Jim, thank you very much. Of course, my very first business of the day is to thank Jamie Rand for making the posters and giving me the space and time to do it as close to Veterans Day as possible. And that is important because you'll see how it fits in to Veterans Day. And the second thing, of course, is to thank the man who was the director of the Council on Aging here at Wyndham, Jim Reynolds. And like the Bob Woodbury in the back, these families were known in Wyndham when I was growing up here. The same year this poem was written, so I won't tell you what year it was written. But at any rate, that's okay. So after you get a sweet, if you want it, and a cup of coffee, then I can settle down into it. But let me just tell you first a couple of things. Poetry has so many forms, 18, 20, who knows? There are acrostic poems that you read vertically and letters will spell a word or a phrase as you read across the poem. There are ballads with music. There are heroic poems that tell of feats and adventures of great men, etc. This is a narrative poem. Now, the narrative poem has certain characteristics. It has a plot, it has a setting, and it has characters. And the other thing about a narrative poem is really a short novel, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So what you will be hearing today is the story of a young girl who travels to England in the war years, just before World War I, and the poem ends just as she's facing the consequences of World War II. So now, if I've been turning my head, has any of you lost my voice? It's good. No, I'm upset with that. All right, Jerry, you tell me then how the coffee is.
I'm looking for the light. Things I'm on it, but it's crazy. But it's so hard to touch up the top that I could burn myself. But the bottom is how hot too. So I think you're ready.
Could you do me one favor?
Yeah.
Would you get me one of those cups and just pour me some cold water? And that is like that goes in that. It's like a little bit.
What's in here?
What's it called?
Let me see.
Oh, that. It looks like pie. It's like that.
How's it feel? It's hot. Actually, it's my across.
It could be a little higher.
We know a little high.
Oh, thank you.
But it's like sort of thing. Do it, kill me.
I mean, it's like the fireworks. So it's just fun to see people here that have been friends like Beth wasn't since childhood, but I'm just waiting for the coffee. So I'm amping Frank, and I'll still have you out of here in 43 minutes. Okay, so much. But friends from childhood, and Debbie McCandle, there was a year or two I had agreed at Wenham Center, the old Wenham Center right across the street. Bob Woodbury, the gentleman at back, his father, and one of my older brothers, who was in World War II, were friends. And it's, that's amazing to see that. Mary Ann Morrissey Curtin was a classmate from Newton. And we haven't seen each other quite a few years. My group, right? That's Moon. Thank you. I didn't say it. And let's see, Elizabeth J. and her sister Priscilla, both very talented women. One is more into writing, and the other is definitely a singer, and they had been an opera singer in Europe, and etc. Sue, my goodness, and Peter do a wonderful job up at Asbury Grove, and they run the barn. And if you haven't been there, it does take me hours, and the barn's floor is very uneven. It actually my balance isn't as good as it used to be, etc. So, but that is fun. It wasn't open a lot of last summer, and etc. Now, you know that Trudy Brusky, who was Jerry's able assistant at Mass Audubon for years. And Jerry used to laugh and say, if I don't have an idea, you can be assured Trudy does. And when Trudy left, I'm telling you, my heart went out of some of going up to visit Jerry in his office out in Lincoln. And Betty, I met recently. She came to a yard sale that we held and got talking to her and her daughters, and it was lovely meeting her. And I knew I recognized her when she walked in, but I didn't place it. So that's what's going on. Jerry, is the coffee ready?
It was. I think they still looking on it.
Yeah.
I think everyone's ready to listen.
Yep.
What do you think?
I
Try it in a way.
try one.
That's the way to do it.
She just had one, and it's too hot for me, which means it's probably just great for everybody else. So you can have people get coffee and.
So if you would like to get up at anything, I'll give you just a couple of minutes to do it. And if not, I'm going to take a break approximately 2/3 of the way into the poem. And because my voice will make the rest, I'm sure you'll understand it. So, and that would be a time you could get, good for Sue.
We saw it. Yeah, we broke out. I could read it for Lord. That is anything you into your little feet. And how do I? If it's to your it's big.
No, it's apples for pretty good.
It sucks. Yeah, with the spouse still big word doing this.
I know everyone here. I'm sorry.
It's just orange color. That is so toxic. Yeah,
My mom was born.
Yeah, I'll just do it. How are you today?
When I care, I should got my hearing aids because I can hear my dad. It was born in 1938. Even in the last moment, and I was born. I don't know. He was in the 17. I said, the hero show. If I went, he's the brother. I like that very much. Yes. And I was born in February of 1940. Can you put that? So,
Can I get anybody a cup of coffee?
enjoy it. You take coffee with family right now. It's your bird. You don't have to try already. Exactly. So, as I knew it comes off the wall. I'm just the better to because.
Good job, yeah.
I'm quite
Yeah,
good. Thank you.
all right.
Right.
Put my something.
Okay.
Yes, you're probably good.
I wish I can start.
No, I tried.
I do want to tell you this poem was published in 1940 for those of you who don't know. And in 4 months it had 13 printings. It was amazing, and it sold close to 1 million copies on both sides of the Atlantic. It is an amazing narrative story of a young girl who travels to England, meets a titled and handsome nobleman there, marries him and lives her life there, raising her son when her husband is widowed. And she is at first put off at times by the English and then realizes how great a people they are, as she says. So we have a woman born in England here, and just around the time the poem was written. Now, the narrator will be a young girl. Her name is Susan Dunn. And she will begin by telling you this. I have loved England dearly and deeply since that first morning, shining and pure, the white cliffs of Dover I saw rising steeply out of the sea that once made her secure. I had no thought then of husband or lover. I was a traveler, the guest of a week. Yet, when they pointed the white cliffs of Dover, startled, I found there were tears on my cheek. I have loved England, and still as a stranger, here is my home. For now in her hour of trial and danger, only the English are really her own. It happened the first evening I was there. Someone was giving a ball in Belgrave Square. Light blue carpet on the stairs, tall young footmen everywhere, tall young men with English faces, standing rigidly in their places, rows and rows of them firm and stained, in powder and breeches and bright gold frame. I walked up the stairs between them all, strange and frightened, shy and small. And as I entered the ballroom door, saw something I never had seen before, except in portraits. A stout old guest, with a broad blue ribbon across his breast. That blue as deep as the southern seas, bluer than skies can ever be. The Countess of Salisbury, Edward III, no damn merit. The Duke, I heard my own voice saying, upon my word, the Governor, and clapped my hands like a child. Someone beside me turned and smiled and looking down at me said, I fancy you're Bertie's Australian cousin Nancy. He told me to tell you that he'd be late at the Foreign Office, and not to wait supper for him, but to come with me and try to behave as if I were he. I should have told him on the spot that I had no cousin, that I was not Australian Nancy. I showed that my name was Susan Dunn, and that I came from a small white town on a deep-cut bay, in the smallest state in the USA. I meant to tell him, but changed my mind. I needed a friend, and he seemed kind. So I put my gloved hand into his glove, and we danced together, and fell in love. Young and in love, how magical the phrase, how magical the fact. Who has not yearned over young lovers, when to their amaze they fall in love, and find that love return, and the lights burned, and their eyes are clear to see God's image in their common play? Is it the music of the spheres they hear, or is it a prelude to that noble play, the drama of joined lives? Allah, they forget. They cannot write their parts. The bell is rung, the curtain rises, and the stage is set for tragedy. But they are in love, and young. The English are frosty when you're no kith of theirs, but how they alter when once they take you in. The kindest, the truest, the best friends ever known. It's hard to remember how they froze you to the bone. They showed me all of London, Johnny and his friends. They took me to the country for long weekends. I never was so happy. I never had such fun. I stayed many weeks in England instead of just one. John had one of those English faces that always was and always will be found in the cream of English places, till England herself sink into the sea. A blonde, bowed face with prominent eyes, a little bit bluer than English skies. And what a voice he had, gentle, profound, clear, masculine. I melted at the sound. Oh, English voices, are there any words, those tones to tell, those cadences to teach? As song of thrushes is to other birds, so English voices are to other speech. Those pure round O's, those liquid L's ring in the ear like the sound of Sabbath bells. Yet, I have loathed those voices, when what they said, it seemed to me, insolence, as if the dominance of the whole nation lay in that clear enunciation. Many years later, I remember when one evening I overheard two men in classes, white waistcoats, I know were built in Mark Street or Seville Road, so calm, so confident, so finely bred, young gods in tails, and this is what they said. Not your first visit to the States? Oh no, I've been in Canada 2 years ago. Good God, I thought. Had they never heard that we were those queer colonists who would be free, who took our chance and fought and won under a colonist called Washington? One does not lose one's birthright, it appears. I had been in England then for many years. London, just before dawn, immense and dark, smell of wet earth and growth from the empty park. Pall Mall vacant, White House deserted. Johnny and I strolling away from some party in silence profound. Only far off in Mayfair, piercing, the sound of the footman's whistle, the rhythm of hooves on wood, further and further away. And now we stood on a bridge where a poet once came to keep vigil, while all the city lay asleep. Westminster Bridge. And soon the sun would rise, and I should see it with my very eyes. Yes, yes, now it came, a broad and awful glow out of the violet mist of dawn. Oh no, I said, hath earth anything not to show more fair, changed though it be, than this? A curious background, surely, for a kiss, our first. Westminster Bridge at break of day, setting for Wordsworth, as John used to say. Why do we fall in love? I do believe that virtue is the magnet, the small amour, the spark, the torch that we receive at birth, and that we render back again. The drop of godhood, like a precious stone, may shine the brightest in the tiniest flake. Lavished on saints, to sinners not unknown, in harlot none, philanthropist and rake, it shines for those who love. None else discerns evil from good. Man's fall did not bestow on threatened wisdom. Blindly still, we yearn after a virtue that we do not know, until our thirst and longing rises above the barriers of reason, and we love. And still I did not see that my life was changed, utterly different, by this love estranged forever from my native land. And I was now of that unhappy band that loses the old and cannot gain the new, however loving, and however true to their new duties. I could never be an Englishwoman. There was that in me, Puritan, stubborn, that would not agree to English standards, though I did not see the truth because I thought them then, good or ill, so great a people, and I think so still. But a day came when I was forced to face facts. I was taken down to see the place, the family place in Devon, and John's mother. Of course you understand, he said. My brother will have the place. He smiled. He was so sure that the world was better for primogeniture. And yet he loved that place, as Englishmen do love their native countryside. And when the day should be, as it was sure to be, when this was home no more to him, when he could go there only when his brother's wife should ask him, to a room not his life would shrink and lose its meaning. How unjust, I thought. Why do they feel that it must go to that idle, insolent eldest son? Well, in the end, it went to neither one. Johnny's mother, the Lady Jean, child of a penniless Scottish peer, was handsome, worn, high-coloured, lean, with eyes like Johnny's, more clear, like bubbles of glass in her fine tanned face. Quiet she was, and so ill at ease, so perfectly sure of her rightful place in the world, that she felt no need to please. I did not like her. She made me feel talkative, restless, unsure, as if I were a cross between a parrot and an eel. I thought her blank and cold and stiff. And presently she said, as they sooner or later always say, "Become an American, Miss Dunn. Really, you do not speak like one." She seemed to think she said something both courteous and flattering. I answered, though my wrists were weak with anger, "Not at all. I speak, or at least I'll always thought this true, as educated people do in any country, even mine." Really? I saw her head incline. I saw her ready to assert, Americans are easily hurt. Dear John, I'm going home. I write to say goodbye. My boat train leaves at break of day. It will be gone when this is in your hands. I've had enough of foreign lands, sightseeing, strangers, holiday, and play. I'm going home to those who think the way I think and speak as I do. Will you try to understand that this must be goodbye? We are both rooted deeply in the soil of our own countries, but I could not spoil our happy memories with the stress and strain of parting. If we never meet again, be sure I shall remember till I die your love, your laugh, your kindness. But goodbye. Please do not hate me. Give the devil his due. This is an act of courage. Always, Sue. The boat train rattling to the green countryside. A girl within it battling her tears and pride. The Southampton landing, port as neat and quick, and a young man standing, leaning on a stick. Oh, John, John, you shouldn't have come this long way. Did you really think I wouldn't be here to make you stay? I can't remember whether there was much stress and strain, but presently together we were traveling back again. Johnny and I were married. England then had been a week at war, and all the men wore uniform, as English people can, unconscious of it. Percy, the best man, as thin as paper and as smart as paint, bade us goodbye with admirable restraint, went from the church to catch his train to hell, saving his Batman from a shell. We went down to Devon in a warm summer rain, knowing that our happiness might never come again. I not forgetting, till death do us part, was outrageously happy with death in my heart. Lovers in peacetime with 50 years to live have time to tease and quarrel and question what to give. But lovers in wartime had better understand the fullness of living with death close at hand. My father wrote me a letter. My father, scholarly, indolent, strong, teaching Greek better than high school students retain. Teaching Greek in the winter, but all summer long sailing a yawl in Narragansett Bay. Happier, perhaps, when I was away. Free of an anxious thought, he could sail blue water day after day, beyond Breton Reef lightship and beaver tail, past Cubbynon to catch a gale off the Cape, while he thought with Hellas and Troy, chanting with joy Greek choruses, those lines that he said must be written someday on a stone at his head. But who can know, as the long years go, that to live is happy, has found his heaven. My father, so far away, I thought of him in Devon, anchoring at a blind fog in Booth Bay. So, Susan, my dear, whatever began, you'll fall in love with an Englishman. Well, they're a manly, attractive lot, if you happen to like them, which I do not. I am a Yankee through and through, and I don't like them or the things they do. Whenever it's come to a knockdown fight with us, they were wrong, and we were right. If you don't believe me, cast your mind back over history, and what do you find? They certainly had no justification for that maddening plan to impose taxation without any form of representation. Your man may be all that a man should be. Only don't bring him back to me saying he can't get decent tea. He could have got his tea all right in Boston Harbor a certain night when your great-great-grandmother, also a Sioux, shook enough tea from her husband's shoe to supply her house for a week or two. The war of 1812 seems to me about as just as a war could be. How could we help but come to grips with a nation that stopped and seized our ships and took off our seamen? For no other reason except that they needed crews that season. I can get angry still at the tale of their letting the Alabama sail, at Palmerston being insolent to Lincoln and Seward over the Trent. All very long ago, you'll say. But whenever I go up Boston way, I drive through Concord, that neck of the wood, where once the embattled farmer stood, and I think of Revere, and the Old North Steeple. And I say, like heck, we're the only people who lick them not only once, but twice. Never forget it. That's my advice. They have their points. They're honest and brave, loyal and sure, sure as the grave. They make other nations seem pale and flighty, but they do think England is God Almighty. And you must remind them now and then that other nations breed other men, from all of which you will think me rather unjust. I am your devoted father. John read the letter with his lovely smile. Your father has a vigorous English style, and what he says is true, upon my word. But what's this war of which I never heard? We didn't fight in 1812. Yes, John, that was the time when you burnt Washington. We couldn't have, my dear. I mean, the city, we burnt it. Yes, we did. But what a pity. No wonder people hate us. But I say, I'll make your father like me yet, someday. I settled down in Devon when Johnny went to France. Such a tame ending to a great romance. Two lonely people with nothing much to do but get to know each other better. She did, and I did too. Mornings at the rectory, learning how to roll bandages and always saving light and cold. Oh, that house was bitter as winter closed in spite of heavy stockings and woolen next to skin. I was cold and wretched, but never unaware of John more cold and wretched in a trench out there. All that winter long, I wanted so much to complain, but my mother-in-law, as far as I could see, felt no such impulse, though she was always in pain, and as the winter fogs grew thick, took to walking with a stick, heavily. Those bubble-like eyes grew black whenever she rose from a chair, rose and fell back, unable to bear the sure, agonizing torture of rising. Her hands, those competent, bony hands, grew gnarled and old, but never ceased to obey the command of her will, only finding new hold of bandage and needle and pin, and not for the blinking of an eye did she ever stop thinking of the suffering of Englishmen and her two sons in the trenches. Now and then I could forget for an instant in a book or a letter, but she never forgot either one, Percy and John, though I knew she loved the one the better. Percy, the wastrel, the gambler, the eldest son. I think I shall always remember until the day I die. Her face that day in December, when in a hospital ward together, she and I were writing letters for wounded men and dying. Writing and crying over their words, so silly, so simple and loving. Suddenly, looking up, I saw the old vicar moving like fate down the hospital ward, until he stood beside her, where she sat at a bed. "Dear friend, come home," he said. "I have tragic news." She looked straight at him without a spasm of fear, her face not stern nor masked. "Is it Percy or John?" she asked. "Percy." She dropped her eyes. "I am needed here. Surely you know I cannot go until every letter is written. The dead must wait on the living," she said. "This is my work. I must stay." And so she did, the whole long day. Out of the dark and dearth of happiness on earth, out of the world inured to death and pain, on a fair spring morning to me a son was born, and hope was born, the future lived again. To me a son was born. The lonely heart forlorn travail was, as the Bible tells us, forgot. How old, How commonplace to look upon the face of your firstborn and glory in your lot. To look upon his face and understand your place among the unknown dead in the churchyards lying. To see the reason why you lived and why you died. Even to find a certain grace in dying. To know the reason why buds blow and blossoms die, while beauty fades and genius is undone. And how unjustified is any pride in all creation, save in this common one. Maternity is common, but not so it seemed to me. Motherless I did not know. I was all unprepared to feel this glow, holy as a Madonna, and as crude as any animal's beatitude. Crude as my own black cats, who used to bring her newest litter to me every spring, and say with green eyes shining in the sun, "Behold this miracle that I have done." And John came home on leave, and all was joy and thankfulness to me, because my boy was not just a baby, but the heir to the Devon acres, and a name as old as England. Somehow, I became almost an Englishwoman, almost as one with all they ever did, all they had done. I want him called John after you, or if not that, I'd rather. But the eldest son is always called Percy, dear. Well, I don't ask to call him Hiram after my father, but the eldest son is always called Percy, dear. But I hate the name Percy. I like Richard or Ronald, or Peter like your brother, or Ian or Noel or Donald. But the eldest son is always called Percy, dear. So the vicar christened him Percy, and Lady Jane gave to the child and me the empty place in her heart. Poor lady, it was as if she had seen the world destroyed, the extinction of her race, her country, her class, her name, and now she saw them live again. And I would hear her say, "No, I admire Americans. My daughter-in-law was an American." Thus she would well repay the debt, and I was grateful. The English made life hard for those who did not come to her aid. What could I do but ache and long that my country, peaceful, rich, and strong, should come to do battle for England's sake? What could I do but long and ache? And my father's letters I hid away, lest someone should know the things he'd say. You ask me whether we're coming in. We are. The English are clever as sin. Silently, subtly, they inspire most of our youth with the holy fire to shed their blood for the British Empire. We'll come in. We'll fight and die humbly to help them, and by England will do us in the ally. They'll get colonies, gold and fame, and we'll get nothing but the blame for not having come before. Blame for not sending more money and men and more supplies. Blame if we venture to criticize. We're so damn simple. Our skin's so thin. We'll get nothing whatever, but we'll come in. And at last, like the dawn of a calm, fair day, after a night of terror and storm, they came. My young, light-hearted countrymen, tall and gay, looking the world over in search of fun and fame, marching through London with the cheer of a boastful air, seeing for the first time Piccadilly and Leicester Square, all the bands playing. Over there, send the word to beware. And as the American flag went by, Englishmen uncovered, and I began to cry. We're here to end it, by jingle. We'll lick the highs, okay? I can't get onto the lingo. Done. They don't get what we say. Call that stuff coffee. You ought to know better. Gee, take it away. Oh, for a drink of ice water. They think not Sundays a day. Say, is this chicken feed money? Say, does it rain every day? Say, lady, isn't it funny everyone drives the wrong way? How beautiful upon the mountains, how beautiful upon the downs, How beautiful in the village post office on the pavements of towns. How beautiful in the huge print of newspapers. Beautiful while telegraphs wires hum. While telephone bells wildly jingle. The news that peace has come. That peace has come at last. That all wars cease. How beautiful on the mountains are the footsteps of the messengers of peace. Bad news is not broken by kind, tactful word. The message is spoken ere the word can be heard. The eyes are the bearing, my breath make it clear, and the heart is despairing before the words hear. I do not remember the words that they still kill, due, November. I knew John was dead. All done and over, that day long ago, the white cliffs of Dover, little did I know. Break time. So if you need to just stand up and move a bit, and I need to adjust this table a bit. I keep pushing it down. There we go. Oh my God, you didn't record that. So, is everybody settled? So let me think. Consider.
What a disappointing Chris.
Yeah, hi.
Why don't you continue, Rudy? And learn from the story. Why don't you finish it off?
I will. Nanny brought up my son as his father before him, austere on questions of habit, manners, and food, nobly yielding up mother's right to adore him, thinking that mothers never did their sons much good. A scarf from Lady Jean's own native parsons, with head as smooth and round as a silver bowl, a crooked nose, and eyes behind the glasses gray and bright and wise. A great soul, ready to lay down her life for her charge, and ready to administer discipline without consulting me. Is that the way for you to answer my Teddy? I think you'll get no sweet tonight to your tea. Bringing him up better than I could do it. Teaching him to be civil and manly and cool in the face of danger. And then, before I knew it, the time came for him to go off to school. Off to school, to be free of a woman's teaching, into a world of men, at 7 years old. Into a world where a mother's hands vainly reaching will never again caress, comfort, and hold. That year she died, my nearest, dearest friend. Lady Jean died heroic to the end. The family stood about her grave, but none mourned her as I did. After, one by one, they slipped away, Peter and Bill. My son went back to school. I hardly was aware of Percy's lovely widow, sitting there in the old room, in Lady Jean's own chair. An English beauty, glacially fair, was Percy's widow, Rosamond. Her hair was silver gilt and smooth and fine. Her eyes, sea green, slanted away from mine. From anyone's, as if to meet the gaze of others, was too intimate a phrase for one as cool and beautiful as she. We were not friends or foes. She seemed to be always a little irked, fretted, to find that other women lived among mankind. And now, for the first time after years of meeting, never exchanging more than a formal greeting, she spoke to me, that sharp, determined way people will speak when they have things to say. Rosamond. Susan, go home with your offspring, fly. Live in America. Rosamond. Susan. Rosamond. Why? Rosamond. Why, my dear girl, haven't you seen what English country life can mean? With too small an income to keep the place going. Already I think I trace a change in you. You no longer care so much how you look or what you wear. The coat and skirt you have on, you know you wouldn't have worn them 10 years ago. Those thick, warm stockings, they make me sad. Your ankles were ankles to drive men mad. Look at your hair. You're fatter. You need a wig. Get out, go home, be hard. Be brave or else. Believe me, You'll be a slave. There's something in you dutiful, make. You'll be saving your pin money every week to mend the roof. Well, let it leak. Why should you care? Susan, but I do care. John loved this place, and my boy's the heir. Rosamond, the heir to what? To a tiresome life drinking tea with a vicar's wife, opening bazaars and taking the chair at meetings for causes that you don't care sixpence about and never will, breaking your heart over every bill. I've been in the States where everyone, even the poor, have a little fun. Don't condemn your son to be a penniless squire. He would be happier driving a tram over there than mouldering his life away as heir. Susan, Rosamond dear, this may all be true. I'm an American through and through. I don't see things as the English do. But it's clearly my duty, it seems to me, to bring up John's son like him, to be a country squire. Poor, alas, but to that English upper class that does not change and does not pass. Rosamond, nonsense! It's come to an absolute stop. 20 years since we sat on top of the world, amusing ourselves and sneering at other manners and customs, jeering at other nations. Living in clover? Not anymore. That's done and over. No one nowadays cares a button for the upper classes. They're dead as nothing. Go home. If some immortal strangers walked our land and heard of death, how could they understand that we, doomed creatures, draw our meted breath light-heartedly, all unconcerned with death? So, in these years between the war, did men from happier continents look on us when they brought us sympathy, and saw us stand like the proverbial ostrich, head in the sand, while youth passed resolutions not to fight, and statesmen muttered everything was right. Germany, a real, kindly, much ill-treated nation. Russia was working out her own salvation within her borders. As for Spain, Spain, they would buy from England when peace came again. I listened and believed through sheer terror. I could not look whither my fear pointed, that agony that I had known. I closed my eyes and was not alone. Later than many, earlier than some, I knew the die was cast, that war must come. That war must come. Night after night I lay steeling a broken heart to face the day when he, my son, would tread the very same path that his father trod. When the day came, I was not steel, not ready. Foolish, wild words issued from my lips. My child, why should you die for England too? He smiled. Is she not worth it if I must? He said. John would have answered yes, but John was dead. Is she worth dying for? My love, my one and only love had died. And now his son asks me, his alien mother, to essay the worth of England to mankind today. This other Eden, demi-paradise, this fortress built for nature for herself, against infection and the hand of war. This happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in a silver sea. Ah, no, not that, not Shakespeare. I must be a sterner critic. I must weigh the ill against the good, must strike the balance till I know the answer. True for me alone. What is she worth? This country not my own. I thought of my father's deep traditional wrath against England, the redcoat bully, the ancient foe, that second reaping of hate, that aftermath of a ruler's folly and ignorance long ago. Long, long ago. Yet who can honestly say England is utterly changed? Not I, not I. Arrogance, ignorance, folly I fear today, and for these my son must die. I thought of these years, these last, dark, terrible years, when the leaders of England made the English believe lies in the price of peace, lies and fears, lies that corrupt, and fears that sap and deceive. I thought of the bars, dividing man from man, invisible bars that the humble may not pass, and how no pride is uglier, crueler, than the pride unchecked of class. Oh, those invisible bars of manners and speech, ways that the proud man will not teach the humble, lest they too reach those splendid heights where a little man has always stood and always will stand, ruling the fate of this small land, rulers of England. For them, must I send my only son to die? And I thought of Hampden and men like him, St. John and Eliot, Cromwell and Pym, standing firm through the gravelly years when the chasm was opening, widening between the Commons and the King. I thought of the Commons in tears, when Blackrock knocked at Parliament's door and they saw rebellion straight before, weeping and yet as hard as stone, knowing that the English have always known since then, as perhaps have known all along, something that none can teach or tell. The moment when God's voice says, rebel. Not to rise up in a sudden gust of passion, not though the cause be just. Not to submit so long that will hate to lava torrents break out and spill over the land in a fiery state. Not to submit forever until the will of the country is one man's will, and every soul in the whole land shrinks from thinking, except as his neighbor thinks. Men who have governed England know that dreadful line that they may not pass and live. Elizabeth, long ago, honored and loved and bold as brass, daring and subtle, arrogant, clever, English too to her stiff backbone, somewhat a Billy like her father. Yet even Elizabeth never dared to oppose the sullen might of the English, standing on the right. And were they not English, our forefathers, never more English than when they shook the dust from their feet, forever, angrily seeking a shore where a man in his own way might worship his God. Never more English than when they dared to rebel against her, that stern and tractable sense of that which no man can stomach and still be free, writing when, in the course of human events, writing it out so all the world could see whence come the powers of all just governments. The tree of liberty grew and changed and spread, but the seed was English. I am American bred. I have seen much to hate here, much to forgive. But in a world where England is finished and dead, I do not wish to live.
And look at
Thank you.
very nice.
So, if you want to get something now,
The coffee is actually hot.
Yes.
well, you know, maybe they should have had it to eat the boy. I don't know. What do I know? That's that I see. Thank you, people, for coming. Is that now?
Dave, why does that poem affect you so much?
What then?
Why does that poem affect you so much?
I don't know. Certainly, the end of it affects me now. I think most of people can understand. I think those words were prophetic and very applicable today. That when one man's thinking,
Yeah, good.
so kind of true not. So, well, because my brothers were in World War II, and my father was in World War I, though he was very lucky, I'm going to hear. He didn't fight because his boat shipped out. He was just after his 18th birthday, and he went into training, and the boat shipped out, and armistice was declared, and the boat turned around, he came home. But my two brothers, one was in the Pacific, and one was in Europe. I got friends, I saw, but they both came home, and my youngest brother was in the National Guard. So my
Grandson was where?
grandson isn't it?
That's so good.
Right now, currently, I'm teaching the cadets at the sharpshooters. So,
Wow.
don't even. Faith, will you say again the title and the author? I'm sorry. I took out like
Who wrote it?
Alice Jewell Miller wrote it. She was from a highly educated and politically active family. Her grandparents, they had been everything from the founding of the country and around in Philadelphia to president of one of the great universities. And she was a novelist. I don't know some of the books she wrote, but this one she wrote, and when I was 5 years old when the war ended, and my sister, who was 12 at the time and taking elocution from Eleanor Noonan, a wonderful, wonderful teacher my whole family all took from, and Peabody of Danvers, I think. And I would hear Janice, I loved England, as a little girl, And so I heard it, and I heard parts of it. I don't know how much she memorized, but for a 12-year-old, she memorized quite a bit of it, if I remember. And I would hear Mother coaching her. And so when I found it, when Jerry and I were going to England, and I found it, and I found the book, I have a couple of them. I followed it. And I just loved it, because I think it shows you what prejudices can do, and how you can feel one way, and then you become exposed to it, and with a renewed understanding, you see things differently.
What is the title of the poem?
The White Cliffs
The White.
by Alice Dewar, that's D-U-E-R, Miller. It's quite a bit longer than I...
Yeah, I know you brought it down a lot.
Yeah.
But as I remember, the review I read said this was after the Bible. During that period between the wars, the best-selling book in the world. And there are some people who claim that it was...
Oh, yes. That it was
for a second war.
Actually, that was before we went into World War II.
Right.
Because it sold so many copies on both sides of the Atlantic, but it was a strong influence, it's related, that pushed America into joining the British in the war. So it had that kind of an effect. I mean, selling almost 1 million books of poetry. But remember, that's before you saw people interviewed on some channel saying, oh, we're interviewing the author today, go out and buy the book. And
Money was also hard to come by.
Yes. Yeah.
And people were spending a lot of money on books, so to sell 1 million
that's true.
was a big deal.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, like I was born in England. I'm sorry. I was born in England. Yes. And I had a very difficult time when my father came back from the war. When the war was over, he came back from the war. I didn't want anything to do with him because, he weren't really honestly at that point in time. So I had a very difficult time. We had a sting. Yes, I'm showing mail and mailing the house instead of just me and my mother. Well, it was an amazing war. I hope we never see another one like it. I was thinking when they called them the Great Wars, what is great about war? What is great about war? May we never see another one like that or anything like it. It's tragic. So, I think it's a lovely story, and I think the characterization is very different than the movie with Irene Dunn. The father never went to England, when he's sitting in an early scene in England before she goes to the mall. That's not what the poem related. I just think the philosophy and the characters are so much more alive in this poem. I love it. Priscilla. Yeah, maybe that's remember, Priscilla, I took out my ears so I can't hear you.
I know my best friend where I live in England. And she tells me all about, she lived through the war. Unfortunately, they were near an airport. And when the bombers would come over, they drop one on the way. Sure. And then on the way back, they drop another one because there was an airport near there. And did any of you ever hear about the steel tables? If anyone heard the story, in England, if you didn't have you couldn't, and the family that either had gone, and they were given great big wide metal tables. And that's what they would, when the air raids came, when they would kill us down, they would go under those great big metal tables. Have you anyone heard the story of the metal table? No. I had two evidence. Tell me.
I think there was I think it was they put it in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, one of the movies, right? I think they showed that in I think it was an early scene in the first Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie.
Yeah. I've had two different English people tell me that they were a lot of these great big wide metal tables, very heavy. And what they heard the sirens, that when they do, of course, they knew that my friends would start being bombed, and they would just get under the table. And it was night, so that's where they came over.
And I guess what's comparable to that nowadays is having kids crawling under their desks for active shooter drill.
Oh, exactly.
You know, which they do right across the street.
You want to say something?
No, it seems to me that this piece speaks to English ancestry people who are American born, and the soul of it comes out of it for all of us. The soul.
Yeah.
The other thing I like about this particular
That's what in my ears, my darlings. I am so sorry to embarrass these.
The other thing I like about this particular poem is it's spoken from a woman's point of view.
Yes.
And very often we get the heroics of war from a man's point of view.
Yes.
In poetry or in novels.
You know, Trudy, what I've done, I've excerpted and I really had memorized, especially the hospital scene.
Yeah.
And I know I did it in Florida one time for a show that the church was putting on. And as I said to people, it isn't just the men who suffer, right, and die. It affects all of us, each one of us. And I can remember being here and, buying the stamps over here in the first grade and just as the war had ended. But I can remember before that and longing and going down to New York when my brothers would come in on R&R and terrified that you might not see them. And my oldest brother, who would be over 20 years older than I, actually had post-traumatic stress, and we didn't know it. There was no name for that yet. And a year after the war, it took for him to come out of the shell that he was in because of the dangers that he was in. And it was tragic. And my other brother, who was pre-med, just had seen so much death and dying because he was in a medical corps. It did something to both of them that neither of them could talk about.
That might be because Eddie was on a resupply ship for fuel. So he was on a floating bomb.
Yeah. Yes.
That has got to be scary. If he take the week.
The other part about the poem that I thought was very, can't quite think of the word, but it's about the mother saying, but the oldest has always
Called it so serious.
In other words, she's sort of trying to hang on to the England that once was, that she knew. And here we have, different generations and how they react. I thought that was very poignant.
No.
Very poignant.
Well, gee, Trudy, there are people trying to hold on to America back when I was a teenager.
Trudy, Phil and I have friends who have had, some of those big houses. And it just couldn't keep them up. And had to move out and give them to the conservancies.
Yes.
And turn them into tourist facilities. So that one place we visited that was very famous, now, with 800 acres of gardens and, rooms as big as a cathedral.
Yes.
The library with, 4 floors with ladders that move to get the books that were 40 feet up. And, they now live in a small house in downtown London. And they had 80 rooms growing up. And, that England is not what it was. I mean, so many of the places now are tourist facilities and visitation sites and national treasures.
Yes.
But because that's the only way to keep them up.
Yeah. You were going to say.
Hey, I was saying, I know you prefer the poem, but would you recommend the movie?
Would I read?
I mean, I liked the movie. If I didn't know the poem,
Yeah.
I would like the movie.
What was the movie?
But I can't help it.
White Club.
It does so much more to me. It has much deeper feelings and insights into both the way Americans felt about England and about the way, the English felt about America. But I know they were grateful for our coming in, of course. But we should have. I mean, that was the right and proper thing to do. And thank God we did. But I love what it says at the end. The seed was English.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, this poem can be seen from either side. I know we do. There's another program coming in. So, but I will still invite you if you want to take something. Wrap it in a napkin and take something.
Thank you very much. It has been